I'm Melissa Cote. The fastest way to achieve success is to find someone who's already done an amazing job at what you want to do, and then have them explain to you exactly what they did to get there. We all rise by lifting others.
Hi, I'm Nycki Carter, and we are the founders and owners of Insporise, a platform where we can connect wildly successful people with aspiring successful people. And over the next 30 minutes, you are going to hear from someone who is truly inspiring.
Hello, Nycki Carter here. I am the co-founder of Insporise, and we're so excited to introduce you to a total boss babe. And I know some of you either just cringed or got super excited because of that term, but I'm really inspired. I think as a young woman entrepreneur, Hannah is going to seriously inspire the hell out of some people, and I'm super excited to jump right into it. So we will do just that. We'll say hello to Melissa, and then Hannah, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa. I'm the other co-owner of Insporise. And Hannah, we are so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on. And as Nycki said, we're just so excited to talk to you. So jump right in. Tell us who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And then Nycki and I will kind of ask you some questions and we'll just have some girly chit chat.
Yeah, I love it. Well, first of all, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you both so much. I think what you're doing for the community is incredible, and I'm honored to be a part of it. My name is Hannah Pobar. I am the founder and CEO of HomeStudioList.com. We are a platform of real homes available to rent by the hour for photo shoots and film productions, available all across the US. So I like to say you can think of us kind of like the Airbnb for content creation.
I love it. So amazing. So amazing.
So tell us a little bit about when you started and how you started, and then we'll probably work backwards into your background and things like that. So tell us when you started, how long ago, and how you started.
I love it. Yeah. So the company is about to turn 5 years old. I started the website, the very early first website in 2016, right around Christmas time. So it's wild to be 5 years in. I think if the company was a child, it would be going to kindergarten. That's wild. So it's a very crazy little visual, but no, it's been fantastic. So we're 5 years in, have changed a lot throughout those 5 years. I started the company originally. I have a background in photography, put myself through college shooting weddings, portraits, anything that, I could get out there and make money and shoot. I was totally hustling. And so had that photography background that kind of, transcended when I moved to San Francisco. I was living in a beautiful apartment. It wasn't fancy by any means, but it had a lot of character and charm, like a really cute Victorian San Francisco apartment does.
Nice.
And I thought to myself, how could I make extra money? And I decided, well, I bet photographers would rent my studio for shoots, a lifestyle shoot or a content creation shoot, something like that. So started getting the word out there, and it totally took off. And within a couple of months, I was booking huge productions with companies like HGTV and I was making thousands of dollars, and it was so cool, the experience. And so I thought of creating a platform so that other people could work with brands in the same capacity that I had. So 5 years ago, here we are today. It's been quite a journey, but it's so cool to see how all the pieces come together,
So tell me a little bit about that outreach, because I think that that's crazy. So I think one, there's like a huge mindset aspect to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like even as let's call ourselves young college kids at the time, right? Or something in that same demographic, being like, I'm going to make extra money, I think is praised, because most college kids are like, I'm just going to go bartend on the weekends or whatever. Right. And then, so coming up with the idea, but then actually coming up with a website and a script and having the confidence to reach out to people is, I don't think, something that a lot of people would be brave enough to do. So can you talk a little bit on that, either advice and then what you did?
Yeah. So I think that you've hit it nail on the head, is that just actually starting is the hardest part. And for months I was thinking about it. I was planning. I had, such a process. I was going to first reach out. I have a 2-sided marketplace. So, I need to get inventory, which is my homes and our spaces. But then I also need guests and photographers and content creators and people who are, looking to utilize the spaces. So I had this very elaborate grand plan of rolling this company out over a year. And I thought for 6 months, I'll build the inventory. And then for 6 months, I'll focus on marketing. And it's funny how you can have such an amazing plan. You can have, a million trackers. Down to it, I had just initially started reaching out to a couple of blog friends that I knew who had really beautiful homes. And I just sent them simple outreach emails just saying, hey, here's what I'm working on. I'll talk a bit about the structure and format of the email in a few, but just sent out some emails, got them out the door. People were super interested. I had such interest from the start. So I started getting these spaces up. And one of the initial hosts, actually, there were 3 spaces on the site, and she saw one of them and she wrote me and said, hey, I'm a photographer as well. Can I rent one of these spaces for a shoot?
Wow.
Yeah, of course you can. Honestly, I had nothing together in terms of being able to facilitate a reservation or make that even happen. But I was like, I'm going to figure it out. So in the course of a weekend, I pulled together everything, created the flow of how we were going to actually facilitate the reservation from that request date, collecting the payment and then pushing through the reservation. So all of that condensed into one day of weekend work, and we got it out the door. And it's crazy to say, but we pretty much use that exact same format today. There have definitely been some enhancements and improvements,
Right.
but it just goes to show that you can plan forever. And planning is great. I think you got to dream it up. You have to feel inspired before you take action. But for me, it nothing went according to plan. It just kind of all, chaotically came together. And I think that's
you make way more action once you actually get an ask. You're like, I wasn't gonna work on that until 2 months from now because that's what my plan says. But it seems how you're asking me this weekend, I'm gonna do that early. I feel like we've been in that boat a few times.
Yeah.
and you just have to, take the opportunities that you get. And there, I could have easily said no, we're not taking reservations right now. But I just figured might as well jump in and try it. So yeah, I think going back to that outreach email though, something that's been super effective for me has truly just been embracing my personality. And the best emails that we send are personal emails, or very seemingly personal emails. I think people think, oh, I need this, really professional tone. I need this, I need that. And I think for, specific brands, of course, I think everyone has their own, format and medium that's going to work best for them. But for my company, the thing that we've seen is truly the excitement, the community, all of that comes together really in an actual personalized email. So I'm not shy with the exclamation points. And for some of my career, I was a little self-conscious of that. And I think, in today's world, you want to be I felt I just need to embrace who I am and
authentic,
and be effective for us. Yeah.
I think on a marketing point, that's a really great tip too, because I will read some people's emails, and how easy would it be for you to be like, I'm B2B, so I'm going to reach out to these photographers and be like, let's set up a campaign shoot for you to, you're like, don't do that. Just be a person and message them and have your ask and your story. I love that. That's really, really good.
No, and on that note, in the early days, that was something I was almost self-conscious of, where I thought, I don't have the resources to, hire a copywriter to create these sales emails for me. And that's not my strong suit. So a couple of years ago, I actually thought, okay, now's the time to revamp these emails. I want to see them convert better. And so I hired a sales copywriter who had amazing results behind her. By all means, it should have, you would think that would be a really effective solution. And it's crazy when we tested them against my personal email with all the exclamation points from 4 years ago, mine won. So it just goes to show that I think if you understand your market and you are authentic to who you are, I think that really does pay off.
That's what shows.
Yep.
That's super inspiring. All of that's really super inspiring. Question? You go. I could ask you 4 more questions, but I guess I'll let you talk.
So that first, like we talked about for a quick second before we started, I'm really big on the mindset of business and kind of where you have to be when you make that decision. I try to ask a lot of the guests that we have, like that exact moment where you decided you were going to go from not having your business to having your business, that moment where you were like, okay, I'm going to do it. Where was your mind at where you were like, I know how to find the first person that is going to be interested in this? Like, did you already have a contact? I know you said later on you contacted bloggers or whatever, but that was once you like did started the platform. But when you were like, I just kind of want to rent out my own space, did you have any inclination of how you were going to get there?
I had a lot of ideas. I think I come from the startup world. So in my head, I thought, okay, there's some like outreach things that I want to do that seem really interesting. But I've also always been entrepreneurial and always just been like, I'm just going to try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I've tried dozens of other things that did not stick. So I really didn't have any ego in it at the beginning, in a sense of like, if this doesn't work or nobody rents my space, I'll be fine.
Right.
You're going to have that like flippancy a little bit in the beginning because you need to be flexible and you need to like be willing to adapt and change. Or if you really care about what you're doing and your idea, I think you need that flexibility to say, I'm going to pursue this and, the path will lead me there. And so you have to be willing to just try something and see if it sticks. But yeah, I definitely had some people that I reached out to immediately, but I can't even remember if those were actually the people that ended up utilizing the space. It was more just that was a good foundation to get the word out there. And then people started telling other people. And so it really was just this like beautiful word of mouth unfolding situation. And yeah, even today, that's our biggest traffic driver, or when we ask people in a survey after their reservation how they found out about us, it's majority referral, which is like a really cool
awesome.
cornerstone of the business that's been able to keep intact even as we've scaled.
That's awesome. So, okay, I have another question. So now logistic wise, so as you're building this, because Nycki and I have a two-way platform as well. And it's been kind of important to me to like level it out so that like the way that I describe it is it's like opening like if you were going to open a storefront and it's opening day and you've marketed this thing and you've got all kinds of advertising and now there's a line around the block and you just have all these people waiting at the front door to get in and you open up the front door and everybody's so excited and they walk in and they see all empty shelves. There's not a product on the shelf.
There's 3.
Right. Like you just lost all those people that were in line. Now they're disappointed. And so it's been really important for me to do like an equal, like you have to have enough members to the product. So what was your strategy? I know you said that you had a plan, but it didn't go like that. So
totally.
How did that work? Kind of filling in both sides.
Initially, that was also my thinking too. And talking to mentors in the industry and people who have created marketplaces, that was a lot of the advice and the feedback that I got was you really want to keep things super balanced. And I actually did the complete opposite and it was effective. So I'm not going to say it was bad advice by any means. I think it just does come down to your format. Like in your example, I'm like, get out your iPad and collect all those email addresses. Like they're still your customers. Like you just need to figure out that effective way that you can market to them. So for us specifically, in the early days, a lot of people advised pick a pilot city and pick one city and develop out the city, develop the inventory, get the guests, like get
one
it all.
niche. We hear that all the time too. Yeah.
Be very specific. And I did start out that way. But I quickly realized that I didn't have the resources I didn't have the money to be targeting people through ads effectively. I didn't have like the cash flow yet. And so I wasn't doing that. And referral marketing was harder, so specific in specific geographies. So in my case, we represent spaces all throughout the US. And the homes on our site are majority of them are owned by people. People don't move as, much as they do when they're renting and things like that. So my inventory was actually stickier, I think, than I initially expected. So we actually started taking applications for hosts all throughout the US. And I thought, let's just let them roll in. Let's continue to build out these different cities in different states. Sure, we did select some and did more marketing in those specific areas, but it's crazy to see how just by allowing and like opening up the doors, we did get so much interest in spaces in, states and geographies that we probably wouldn't have had or wouldn't be targeting because like we just didn't have the resources at the time. So that was really cool. I actually feel like I did the opposite, which was like, let's just focus on building the inventory. And since it's sticky, the guests will come, and they did. I will say it was a bit of a slow build, like that. We are now like recognizing the benefits of that a couple years into that approach, but it totally worked out fine for us, and it definitely was against the feedback and advice of other people. So it was an interesting play, but it definitely seemed to be effective, especially as we do just more like social media marketing and things like that, where you're not able to target as much unless you're putting cash behind that spend.
I think that's a good thing. I feel like you have questions for that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Or just to say too, like in the early days, we actually had like a gated experience to our website where you had to sign up for access. And so basically in the early days, we were only letting people in who we had spaces in their geography. So that was like a really interesting way, I think, to mask the fact that we didn't actually have spaces in every state. Right. Early on, I was more concerned. I don't feel this concern anymore, but I was more concerned that someone would see what I was doing and go replicate it, in their geography. And so I wanted to kind of gate that experience, but we made it really fun and exciting. And we said, like, this is exclusive. Like, we don't let everybody in. And that was true. We were only letting in the people that we had spaces available for. So in the early days, we did kind of throttle that, but I do think that for me, we saw so much growth when we just like opened it up and yeah.
Is that why you changed it? Because I've done that too. I've had so many like membership sites where I'm like, this is exclusive and we're going to gate this. And then I've been like, no, just open it up. And I bounce back and forth between that. Did you see that you were getting a better response with it just open?
Yeah. We actually saw a huge change in conversion like overnight of requests coming in. And I mean, you can kind of look at it from a funnel perspective, but when we were, letting people in from the like VIP waitlist situation, that gated experience, you could see that even we had amazing open rates on the emails. We would have 60 or 70% open rates, but there's still a drop off between how many people open that email, go to the website, put in a request. There's a lot of drop off there. So overnight we saw just like an impact on reservations, and strategically at the time for the company, that was the number one goal. So it felt like the right move. Earlier on, the right move was build our email list, build up our inventory. So that gated experience made a lot of sense. So I think you just have to always be like constantly checking yourself between like, what's my immediate near-term goal? What's going to tee me up for the most success later on? And like, try different things. It's not to say that that's like the best way to do it for every company. That just was something that worked really well for us.
While you were building, did you have competitors? Like, was that the reason for the gated side of it? Because you saw that people were kind of interested in the same space, or did you see any like people that were doing something very similar to what you were doing?
We don't have a lot of like true competitors that have the same perspective that we do. I think there are definitely other companies out there that rent spaces, whether those are residential or commercial, for productions. We're so like niche and specific. And we also cater to a really different clientele. Most of our homeowners, they're not people who own office spaces. They are Instagram influencers. They are interior design and home decor enthusiasts. They have really beautiful styled homes, and our whole ethos is like this highly curated assortment, so that you don't have to go and look through like a bajillion listings. And so it wasn't so much that I saw we had competition. It was more I just was trying to kind of gatekeep the experience a little bit and like not let it be so unwieldy at the time. And I think early on in my days of entrepreneurship, I cared more to like protect the idea a little bit. And I don't think that's wrong, but I think now I realize the time and energy that goes into building something. And so I'm sort of like, hey, if you want to do the same thing as me, like,
good luck.
Go try. Like, yeah, of course, there's room for all of us. Like, you can find your own niche and build out your own company. Just don't copy like exactly what we're doing, and you can do it.
I think that is such great advice in anyone's niche. I know that people love to come to me and say like the market is saturated. And it's like, but is the market saturated for you in this example, in this space with this group of people, you know? And it's usually not, because we're all so individualized with price points and needs and locations and niche. Like you said, you know, I can imagine that there's a lot of, let's just say, Airbnb business owners that are running around trying to book like Instagram influencers. And I think it's a great space to niche down into something like that. So good for you to not get distracted in like, there might be competition somewhere, because I think it's a lot of people can play that game. Like, this one girl on Instagram has an account like me, so therefore I can't have this business. Like, no, do the business. Anyone listening, do the business.
There's so many creative ways to make money. Like, even if someone would come in and do the exact same thing, I'm just, you know, on my own path. And I think you just have to realize there truly is just room for everyone. So focus on what you're doing, keep building what you're building. Like, I don't think that it's a winner takes all world in any capacity. And so
agreed. One of my favorite quotes is, I'll see you at the top, because even if we're all doing the same business, like, there's definitely enough. I love that term. I love it. So I kind of want to go backwards. You had talked about the ripple effect is starting to happen. You know, people are starting to hear about you. The word of mouth is happening. But was there a strategy for HGTV? Because that's a huge name. What was that experience like? What happened? I want to hear a little bit about it.
Yeah, it was so cool. And honestly, our guest list has grown so much too. So we just did a cool production with Starbucks. They shot a holiday like coffee creamer campaign in one of our spaces. So we've worked with so many cool companies. And honestly, that has just been word of mouth, industry talk. We don't do anything specifically to target brands like that. That kind of just comes more naturally. I think if you're in a space like a B2B world like that, it is kind of difficult to find those decision makers. For us, a lot of those companies work with other companies like agencies to actually like craft those campaigns and everything. So that all kind of unfolded organically. But in the early days, it was a lot of me just doing like network outreach. I was a photographer, so I did have that advantage. I think all the companies and all the like projects I've pursued have always been, you know, things that I was already very immersed and very interested in. So my network definitely played a huge part. I think it would be pretty difficult to not be able to lean on the network at all. Definitely not impossible. But for me, it's just like my company was born out of an issue, you know, not so much an issue, but just out of a solution that I found for a problem that I had experienced in the industry. So for me to like build out the features, talk the talk, it was so natural. It was such an extension of like everything that I've, you know, worked for and worked with in my career so far.
And that's so amazing. That's so awesome. So I'm like listening to your story and trying to think of questions at the same time, which I
got a bunch.
I know, me too. And I'm gonna like release what I'm feeling and then try to decide where the conversation should go. I am so interested in like the outreach and the builder part. I think it would be really important to touch back on where you're at now for our audience, because when I had initially read like who you were and I was like, I need to book her, you know, talking about bootstrapping and no ads and the importance of the fact that you didn't just like get $1 million loan somewhere laying around and like launch this huge business. I mean, your business has scaled very quickly in 5 years. So I would love to talk about some of those big highlights so that our audience really understands like how quickly this grew in 5 years. Cause I was super impressed as soon as I saw your post. I was like, whoa, she moved fast, so fast.
Yeah, it's been such an incredible journey. I kind of, just to circle back to like the beginning days, I actually had a full-time job for a year while I was building Home Studio List. And I loved it. I think there's so much conversation about when you have an idea, should you go all in? How do you structure that? And for everyone, it is totally different. But for me, what really worked was being able to have that financial like stability on one end, and then also like being able to carve out the time to continue to work on Home Studio List while I was just in like high inspiration phase. I had tried quitting my job, my full-time job, and working on Home Studio List full-time. And I do remember feeling like, whoa, it was such a drastic step change. And I think a lot of people get a little overwhelmed in like that beginning phase of like, now this is my full-time thing. So for me, that evolution of going full-time with Home Studio List did evolve over time. I think, I kind of phased out of that full-time job after a year. I was working contracts. And so I would take contract jobs, and those would be like part-time, consulting situations. My background was also in design, so very complementary, obviously. But the full-time job, the contract jobs definitely allowed me to continue to build Home Studio List out of pure inspiration, like pure enjoyment. Yeah. It didn't feel like a drag, and I can't capitalize enough on how important that was to my experience. I think if I didn't have that in the early days, like there's such a chance I would have burned out or not been excited by it. The reason I was doing that is because I did bootstrap the company. So I didn't have investment from anybody else. There was a lifestyle that I, wanted to maintain for myself. There was, countless like different aspects on the financial side, and being able to have those other things to depend on for my financial means did really unlock the ability for me to grow the team on Home Studio List. Yeah. And so slowly, like I transitioned into working full time for Home Studio List, which, was that slower than some people who go out and raise money? Of course. But for me, the heartbeat behind this business is just maintaining profitability, maintaining like a sustainable business that, can sustain its own growth. And so 5 years in, I'm like, whoa, we're doing it. Like it's been incredible. So one thing
I'm really serious about saying like, I grew this out of purpose and inspiration. Mm-hmm. There's something so like childlike about your business being your baby that the investment is worth watching it grow up and go to kindergarten by yourself than it is like, I'll just throw you in college with like handing away the percentage or whatever analogy I'm trying to come up with on the fly. But right,
like, where you're going. Yeah, it has a lot of values behind it. Yeah, it has values behind it. And I also think that when you have money, you can throw money at your problems. When you don't have money, you have literally no choice but to like get very specific about what the problem is, get to the root of it and solve it, or get creative about what you're going to do with it. And so I really appreciate that flexibility and that adaptability. And as my career has unfolded, I've also realized that I love like constraint. Constraint inspires me. When I feel like, there's guardrails around something, I'm like, okay, I can work with this and I can get really creative and I can blow it out of the water, like using these things as those guardrails. I am not as much like a sky's the limit person. When someone tells me sky's the limit, I'm like, well, what, how? Like, that's true. And so I've really enjoyed like that iterative process. So for me, bootstrapping was like absolutely the right decision. I love having complete control over my company. I have friends who have companies about the same age as mine, and, seeing all of our different paths. I really do feel if you are looking for, financial or like schedule freedom, the only way to really have that is completely like having full ownership over your business. For me, those were never the guiding lights. I've always like so enjoyed the creation process of entrepreneurship. When people say the money aspect or, the finance or the like schedule freedom, I'm like, yeah, those are nice. But for me, I love having just like full control over what I'm creating and like being able to create as freely and like fluidly as I want to. And so I love that.
I love that. I think we talked about Elise's interview, and anyone who's interested in like, she's done both, right? So if you listen to the full thing, she bootstrapped her first business and now she's kind of in a VC space. And she's like, if you like creativity and you want to be a part of a community that you love, like the VC space is not the way to go. If you want someone to tell you if your emails are going to be personal or corporate sounding, then you go like a VC route, right? So anyone that's listening that's like going back and forth between those, just know there's a will, there's a way, and there's a few interviews on here, hopefully, especially yours, that are going to hopefully really prove that to people.
I love it. Yeah, no, that's so inspiring and it's great to hear. And in the early days, I did feel that in having those conversations about, should I go raise money or should I continue to bootstrap the business? There was a lot of interesting, like judgment's too strong of a word, but I did feel people would say to me, oh, it's so cute. You have a lifestyle business. Like that's cute. That's awesome. And it almost made me feel like I didn't have the validation or something. So I guess when you're like having these, internal like dilemmas about if you should raise money, if you should build your company on your own or with your own money, like I just go back to thinking through like what is driving you and like how do you want this to unfold. And there's no right or wrong way for sure.
Did you have any moments throughout this 5-year process thus far where you were like, I am here, I wish we were here, it's not going fast enough, or, other people are telling me I should be, doing this. And did ever those doubts get to you in a way where you're like, maybe I'm not on the right path or anything like that?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, decently often, I think you look at the thing that you've created and we're obviously our biggest critics ourselves. And so I don't know, I feel like I've had to train myself to like step back from my looking at the current, like what is, and stepping back and looking at like, okay, look at how this has evolved. It ebbs and flows. It's like so fluid. Like this is the life force. Like you have to realize like you're going to have down moments for sure. And I always think back to when I started my company or when you're starting something new, you're not looking at like every single, you're sending outreach emails to 12 people. You're not focused on there's 12 people. You're dreaming it up. You are like, you're looking at like what it can be. You're so enamored with this state of like, how will it be? And like, how can it be? You're not so focused on like your ugly emails or like, you know what I mean? Like it's going to grow. And so I think as my business has also grown, it's easy to get stuck in that. I'm looking at what is, I'm looking at the day to day. And I always kind of need to like remind myself, you need to step away and you need to go get inspired and dream it back up. Like, don't get stuck in that maintenance mode, like step away, go on a walk, like dream it up a little bit more. You have to like understand it will continue to evolve. But there have been plenty of times, and I think specifically going through COVID and quarantine, that was a really difficult time. And honestly, I almost quit. It felt so difficult, running a small business, I think, in the midst of such a
no one traveling.
Yeah. People were uncomfortable opening up their homes. It totally made sense. And at the core of what we do, I wanted to keep our community safe. I wanted people to be happy. And so there were a lot of tough decisions, but I'm so glad coming out of COVID, we had our biggest year ever. This year we're up 400% from last year.
Wow.
So yeah, life is good. And, it all worked out, but I really did. That was kind of that defining moment where I had to say, you can't look at the current day-to-day reality. Like you kind of got to step away and like dream it up again. And like, how are you going to get creative and how are you going to be flexible about how this grows and evolves? And and focus on having fun. I mean, I think a lot of times I get into that frustrated mindset when I'm like, okay, we had a revenue goal for this month, or we had, a goal of this many new users, whatever that goal might be. When you're so hyper fixated on that, I think even when you do achieve the goal, it doesn't always feel like that fulfilling. And so one of the things I did in the middle of COVID was like, I revisited our business goals. And one of the ones that I put at the very top was like, have fun, like have more fun. And that's so not a real, how do you measure that? But you measure it like in the way that you feel. And it sounds kind of frilly and fruity or whatever, but it totally changed the way that I prioritize the things that we do in our company. And I do think through the actual outcome of like, if I do this project, like, am I going to enjoy it? Isn't the whole reason that you like have a company and have the freedoms that you have to like enjoy the process? Yep. And so, yeah, I've actually found like so much, not new, but like restored fulfillment just in everything, just by kind of going off of like, does it feel good? Does it feel like a good decision? Am I going to enjoy like creating this, aspect of the company?
I love that.
I find that super inspiring.
Yeah, agreed.
The thing that, like, if I summarize that whole section in like one paragraph or sentence, I would say like pressure creates diamonds, right? Or whatever that like saying is. I feel like, yeah, that's super inspiring. I love it. So do we want to talk about the now and where you're at? And like, I mean, we don't have to talk money, but I know we talked a little bit about money, and I think it's so inspiring. If you're okay with sharing it, like, what you have, I love it. I love it all. So tell me about the properties, what cities you're in, like our main cities, I guess. Yeah. Revenue goals or something. I think that would be really amazing if you're open to it. If not, I'll totally edit it out. Yeah. But
right now we represent approximately 800 spaces all across the US. We're in pretty much every state. I used to say 30 plus. I just counted the other day. It's more like 45 plus. So I think we're missing a couple out there. So would love to, finally be in all 50 states. But 2022, it's going to happen. And over the lifetime of the company, we've done over $4 million in requests through the platform, facilitated thousands of reservations. And the metric that I'm the most inspired by is that we have a 9.7 NPS score, which is a net promoter score. That's basically after a reservation, we ask our guests, how likely are you to recommend a friend home studio list? And 9.7 people out of 10 say 10 out of 10 will, or 9.7 out of 10 say. Wow. So it's been such a cool, I think it's so cool to see, those metrics unfold as we've continued to grow the business.
Especially as a beginner when you're building, right? You're like, that number seems so crazy to a newbie. And you're like, here I am, like consistency. And not just that, but you're serving like homeowners who, also enjoy probably an extra revenue, but then supporting small businesses who are content creators and growing their own businesses and influencers and affiliate marketing. So I love it. I can just definitely see like all of the ripple effects that come from that marketplace experience to begin with.
That the community piece is just the most important part. And so it is wild. I think to me, like the revenue is cool and it's so fun, but it is funny how like when you're focused on some of the like other things, I will go months without looking at a specific report. And this past year, we breezed through all of our revenue goals really early on in the year. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Like I need to go back and reforecast and come up with a new plan. But, that's cool and all. But I think when it comes down to it, like the things that get me the most excited are when like I see people tagging us in their reels and, like sharing the love and like Instagram storying how like they had such an amazing experience and how excited they are. And I'm like, it's just wild to think that a couple of years ago, I was equally as excited about, 3 people using the platform in a month. And now, like, I just see how that's snowballed into what it is today. And I'm like, it's just the best feeling. I hope that everyone experiences that feeling, like somehow, some way in their life, even if it's not through creating a business, but it feels amazing.
Yeah. And I think the money aspect for inspiration is just knowing about possibility, right? Mm-hmm. Just the inspiration of like anything that you dream up, if you work hard enough, if you come up with a plan, if you go through the process, like there's enough room, there's enough space, right, for your dream to happen and be true, which is why we dip into the money space a little bit. But thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Inspiring. I think the outreach and all of those things are, I think, seriously so inspirational, which I think I've used that word more in this podcast than any other one. I'm going to come up with a new word, but as soon as how it's branded, I don't know.
Amazing. Yeah, it's perfect. It's very on brand. You got it.
Extra on brand. It's too on brand. Questions? What are you thinking over there?
I'm very, I'm not going to use the word inspired, even though I am. No, I commend you. I very much commend you for everything that you have dreamt up and put out to the universe and worked through and gone down this path for yourself and rejuvenated yourself with the joy and excitement, because I say it all the time. I believe we get to live one life on this earth as whoever we are right now. And I want to enjoy every single moment of being on this planet. I think it's a gift. And I think that, we don't get to do it again as ourselves. So if I go one day being unhappy, I've wasted that day. And so whatever we choose to do with our day, whether it's start a business or run a business or raise children or travel or whatever it is, like you should be happy in whatever that is every single day. And so the fact that you went back and looked at like these, this business, I started it because it made me happy. And I want that in my every single day. Like, I think that's the most powerful thing that you're doing and making everybody else happy in the process. All these Airbnb owners and the people that use their spaces, and it's so creative and beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to follow your journey too, because I feel like we're so aligned. I don't know if like something that I've gotten really into is just like the law of attraction. And I think it's so cool. And it basically just states like you are the creator of your reality. Yep. And I think there's no truer example than that in creating a company. It's like, or a business, it's like you literally think the thoughts become things, it becomes systems and processes and services and products. And then over time, like other people use and enjoy those things. Like just that like, it's mind blowing. It's like you thought these little thoughts and they all came together and then they work. And I know that probably sounds crazy to some degree.
No, not at all.
Manifestors.
Every day. Yeah.
That's like the creation process that I am just like so inspired by and just totally addicted to. And it's been so cool to see it come together.
I think even in that, Melissa and I will kind of feel in some kind of energy block, and we're like, okay, let's think big, and then we'll come back and be small, and we'll set small intentions, and then you literally snap your fingers and somebody calls you on the phone and it's like, hey, I would love to interview you, and you're exactly the person that we wanted to talk to, or like, it's so crazy how it happens.
Yeah, I feel like you just kind of have to be like light about it and just know like, okay, this, it's going to work, and I need to be flexible in how we get there, but no, I'm totally right there with you. Big on the energy.
Do a whole podcast on manifestation for anyone who's
listening. That would be amazing.
Girls are woo woo over here. What are we talking about?
Me too.
That's so awesome. Okay, so what's next? Tell me a little bit about the future. Like, who inspires you? What are some of your inspirations going forward?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's fun to talk to you guys like right at the end of such a big year. So honestly, this past month, we breezed through all of our revenue goals. It's crazy. In the first 5 days of December, we beat out December revenue from last year, just in the first 5 days.
Amazing.
Good job.
I was like, okay, we did a phenomenal job. Let's like just close the year and be happy and chill and excited. Yeah. And that's the perk when you don't have like investors to please. Right? Growth was amazing. Like I'm going to chill and enjoy it. And I hope I never lose that. I don't want to, but yeah, so I think, kind of just right now I'm working on planning out 2022. I think we have a big year ahead. I'm really interested right now in finding other like fruitful channels for us. Social has always been huge. And I think that feeds directly into like word of mouth and all of that. Sometimes a little bit more difficult to measure. Just the trade-off between like social and if people are finding us on social and then coming later as like a direct visitor. So yeah, I think this coming year, really want to explore different channels, like email, SEO. Those are some that I'm really diving into right now. Social has always been really big for us though. So definitely don't want to lose that by any means. But I think one thing that we focused on this past year was kind of operationalizing some of our efforts there and getting them into processes and flows that are easy to like rinse and repeat. So we can keep that like machine running and, tap into some new things. So that's big. I'm really interested too this year in partnerships. So really want to grow and explore through partnering with brands and companies that would add a lot of value to our users and vice versa. So yeah, those are some of the big things top of mind for me.
You had said something when you first started talking for the last question. You had said, like it's exciting to talk to us. So this is more of a personal question about like as a business owner, what does your circle look like? Like who do you hang out with? Who do you listen to? Like, do you find it hard to like, so I'll just be completely honest. I'm 26.
Tell me what you
I
think.
hang out with my 26-year-old friends. We don't talk about $1 million businesses. We talk about like The Bachelorette or something.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I would be curious, like what your experiences and like, listening to and like up leveling your circle, right? I feel like that's hard for me. So do you have that same experience, or what does that look like for you?
Similar, for sure. I feel very grateful. I feel like, being a solo founder, it probably any founder has a similar experience, right? But pretty lonely, like can be super lonely sometimes. And so I think having like a supportive community and like the people that you surround yourself with is so important. So I feel forever grateful to my best friends who, some of which are not affiliated with the business world at all, but they will answer my call at any time of the day, the night, be a sounding board. Like that is so important. And I think, I have had so much tremendous support throughout my life, and I feel so grateful for that. So definitely have a lot of supportive friends. Definitely have a, group of people that are like unofficially advisors on the company and are definitely like my sounding board when I'm like, is this in line? Does this feel like a good decision? Here's what I'm working through in my head right now. So really grateful for them as well. But I think in the past year going through COVID, I really realized like work had always been my number one interest outside of being my job. It was like, my baby, you want to do everything that you can for it. How do you, take a day off? How do you go to the mall and enjoy yourself? So I had to work through, I think, a lot of like work, not addiction, but like I had a really hard time focusing on other aspects of my life. And so that kind of comes into play with all of this. To go full circle with the question, really love listening to Abraham Hicks. She's, kind of the law of attraction. And getting into that really helped me realize like there is a time and a place for work, but you also need to, or don't you want to have an equally as fulfilling social life? Don't you want to have an equally as fulfilling relationship? Don't you want all of these things to like come together? And I do. And so I think focusing on, enjoyment and fun and ease and peace kind of led me to realize that I want that balance. And so, this past year, I think I worked less than ever. Our business grew more than ever. So I love how those things don't usually interplay, but they did. And I am committed to continuing to see that trajectory continue.
That's awesome. Did you hire people like, or when did you, not to like kind of backtrack a little bit, but to get to the point where you can take time off and have that life balance for yourself, did you know when the right time to hire people was and bring people on?
Yeah, I always knew I was always kind of building the team. And it continues to be built. So it's never like done. But definitely focused on hiring. And then also just like really focused, I think more so than hiring, like, yes, I definitely hired people, but even more so than that, just focusing on like essentials, like really taking the time to time and space to say you don't have to do everything.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I always have, I'd love your guys' opinion. Like, I think about this a lot. It's like, if I had that mindset from day one of my business, would it have would it have still worked out the same way? I hope so. I want to believe so. I feel, more peace and like balance in my life than I ever have before. I also can't help but say, like, wow, I learned so much. Maybe this is like the, light bulb. It's like, I worked so hard to get to the way of thinking that I have now.
Mhm.
But it was a lot of grueling, hustling, work nonstop. My friends would invite me over and say, "Can you not bring your computer?" Like, so,
If I got a nickel for every time that somebody said that to me, I get that a lot too.
I don't know. And I guess we would never know, but yeah.
I think deep down, the entrepreneurs know. We know, right?
It never goes away from me. Like I have very good life balance. I feel like I'm a single mom, so I don't thanks. I don't have the luxury of being able to work every single second because my child needs to eat sometimes once in a while.
And you too.
Yeah, me too once in a while. Yeah. So I definitely had to early on in my business, like figure out like, okay, I have to sleep once in a while. I have to eat. I have to feed my kid. I have to bathe him. I have to do all the other things that are required of me as a single mom. But then I also want to devote every single second of my life to this business because I love it just as much. And so I think the takeaway for that is that if you love what you're doing, it doesn't really feel like work. It doesn't feel like you're, like you said, you're not burning yourself out. Like you're truly loving the process going along through your day to day, that it just feels good that you're birthing this new thing into the world.
Agree. Yeah, no, I totally agree. But yeah, I think, this past year, I really took the time to think through things, I think in ways I hadn't before, where I think I used to say, oh, we need to be doing all this, and this year I really focused on what's working and how do we make that work even more instead of spinning up brand new things that, have an unknown impact on the business. And so that was the way that I kind of like triaged and prioritized this year. And probably will carry that on to next year. But I think next year, like I said, I'm also kind of now intrigued to explore a little bit further into like different areas that we haven't before. I think you undoubtedly need like a mix of that. But when I go back to it, I'm always kind of my personality, I just kind of shift towards, well, what's working and how do we like continue to get more juice out of that? Mm-hmm. That always calls my name a little bit more than like, let's go try. I love going and trying something new, but I realize the time you spend spinning it up just might not always have the payoff.
And that's going to go back to kind of the domino effect of being a solopreneur and bootstrap business. Like Elise made a funny joke where she's like, oops, like, achoo, I sneezed and made a $50,000 mistake. No big deal, because it's my VC's money. She's like, it's my $50,000. What did she say at the end? She's like, I've got 6,000 extra bras in my closet now because
boxes and boxes.
It's my money. Yep.
I think you have to like, going off that story, I have a dear like business friend, and one time I called him, I just made a mistake. We ended up paying a lot for like something we were building with engineers that it was a bit of a miscommunication. It was just one of those like not ideal, unfolding situations. And I called him and I was like, I just feel like, I didn't pay attention to this contract enough. Like the work is great, but like we ended up spending so much on it. And he was like, hey, it's still cheaper than an MBA. And I was like, that's actually a really good way of thinking about it. And so I've never like actually put it in there, but when I'm sort of like, you have to have like a bit of a budget for like learning. I used to say for mistakes, but it's also like, it is learning. Like this is not, you just have to go through and try different things. And undoubtedly you're going to walk away from it with some sort of feedback, hopefully, you either get closer to the solution that you're looking for or not repeat, the mistakes. So
That was kind of like the main premise of what Nycki and I wanted to create with Insporise, is that you can, start something from scratch. Just like if you were baking a cake, for instance, like you're baking a cake, you could just go, what could I put into this cake? And, crack some eggs and put in this. And you get to the end and you're like, well, I think I used too much lemon. I shouldn't have done that. Like next time I'm not going to do that. You could go and make your own mistakes, or you could follow a recipe. And then by the end, you're like, wow, that was perfect. Look at how good I am. I did so great. But yet you followed this recipe. And so that was kind of our theory that we wanted to create with Insporise, is like, there are people in the world who have done what you're looking to do, and they're a little bit further down the road than you are, and they have a recipe now, and they've made their own mistakes. And so they've been able to document this process. And now somebody who's looking to do what they did, or, be inspired by them, maybe it's a little bit different what they want to do, but they can learn from these people that have their own recipes. And there's an exchange of energy there for the recipe maker. You're not just picking their brain. Give me your recipe for free. Like, you know what I mean? Like you as the recipe maker get a benefit, and the person who wants to pick your brain on it gets a benefit, and everybody wins and everybody rises. So you're truly, truly inspiring. And I think so many people are going to want to learn from the recipe that you put together.
Oh, I'm so grateful to hear that. And I think you guys have done an amazing job curating so many cool, incredible resources for people out there. And so, yeah, it's an honor to be a part of the process, mentorship, and, this exchange and facilitation of information has always been so helpful and important in my career. And so love giving back in any way that I can. And, facilitating these connections, I think, is just the coolest and most important part of the process of building a community.
I think community is really what keeps me away from burnout, like just being recharged. Like I'm sitting over here, like, I'm not sure if I want Hannah to be my mentor or my new friend, or like,
all of the above.
What are you doing at 8 o'clock? It's awesome.
We turn off the camera and go get wine.
Yes.
So tell me about your dog. Awesome.
I love it.
So cute. Well, Hannah, I could definitely ask you like another hour worth of questions, but I will refrain. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Knowledge. Yeah. Thank you so much I think time is one of the most valuable things we have as entrepreneurs, because there's only one of us. So yes, thank you so much for showing up and being here and just giving back to my community so much. If there's anything that we can do, please let us know to support you. In the meantime, will you tell our audience how they can find you, best ways to connect with you, questions like that or answers like that?
Yeah, totally. I so appreciate it again. Would love to connect. I am always an open book, happy to answer questions and help in any way that I can in anyone's journey. Our website is homestudiolist.com. We're on Instagram at homestudiolist. My personal Instagram is at Hannah Pobar. Would love to connect and stay in touch, and always happy to be a resource if I can be.
Amazing.
Hannah, you're so awesome. We are so thankful for you. Thank you for everything you're doing out in the world, and keep pushing along. You're doing awesome.
Thank you.
I know secretly before we started, I'm like, oh, look at this place in Phoenix that she has. And oh, look at this cute jacuzzi that's over here.
Yeah, we'll be checking out your website. Poking around.
Do a content shoot. We would love that. We'd love to.
Cool. Awesome.
Facilitate.
All right, Hannah, thank you so much. We'll be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.